Dr. McGill, I was listening to one of your lectures, and you said something that I think really made me laugh. You said, if you go on one walk a day, you deserve your pain. And I was like, wow, that's actually a big deal. And we're over here, we're all about like 10-minute walks all the time, multiple times a day. And a lot of people just like don't walk often. But when you were talking about grip strength and how grip strength can help with your back, it made me wonder what your thoughts are on the feet. Because everybody wears different types of shoes, right? And some people, they go to a doctor and they say, oh, get this type of insole or get this type of shoe that has this crazy, thing at the bottom, but I'm wondering how can people, is because I want, the way I'm trying to ask this question is the way I could help the most people, even though I know there's some specific things, but I want to see what can most people apply. What kind of concepts do people need to think about when they're walking or maybe with their footwear that could help their back? And what maybe are they doing, or what maybe things are they wearing each day on their feet that could actually cause more back problems in the long run?
Yeah, what a fabulous question. Can I answer my brain was still on the first part of your question when you were talking about performance, and then I can dial it back to just walking for
Absolutely.
the average person. So, an athlete will come in and say, I saw someone lifting in Chuck Taylors, and someone else was wearing an Olympic shoe, and someone else was in ballet slippers or whatever. What's going on? And I said, well, for an individual, I have no idea, but I do know how to get there. I know how to answer the question for the individual, but I don't know the answer until we do this. And we call it bracketing. So from a scientific point of view, there are some people who really, their proprioceptive system gives high priority to what their feet are telling them. You take a person who loves yoga. They love the stretch reflex. It gives them a jolly. To me, yoga is jujitsu. That's a submission hold, man. I'm tapping out. I'm out of there. Do you see what I mean? So it depends on your neurology on how you perceive all of these kinds of things. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying everyone's different. So here's the experiment you do. On the lifting platform, start with someone barefoot or in ballet slippers, and then lift. And then give them an elevated Olympic shoe, bind up the laces, bind up the buckle really tight. Now they've experienced both ends of the spectrum, and they'll know right away which side their neurology is on. Now go halfway. Go to a more modest shoe, drop the heel, play leaning tower, all these kinds of things. And my brain just goes too fast sometimes. When we were talking over there, just doing that, that short stop squat and pull through, a lot of lifters are repeat offenders into the pain world because they don't have a strategy to correct the bar. So, they'll descend in the squat and they get the thrust line off by 2 millimeters. Well, if you're squatting 1,000, 2 millimeters is a big deal. So what do? They correct with their back. You correct 1,000 pounds with your back, no wonder you're going to have some micro damage. But instead, if you could use your feet and teach them a leaning tower. So if I'm leaning tower, do you see how this is a ankle strategy? Versus a spine or versus a hip, or it could be a shoulder neck strategy. But usually that correction strategy, if we can adjust that just a little bit, they add to their injury resilience for the future. So feet might be a big part of that if that's what their gig is. Do you see what I mean with your question?
Yeah.
So I would do exactly the same bracketing approach for walking. There are some athletes who slop around with their feet turned out in flip-flops all day, and they think they're going to get on the platform and set a record. Give me a break. They need to tune an athlete. Let's get back to that analogy of how many car mechanics are there in your country, but how many can produce an Indy 500 winner year after year? Maybe a dozen. And it's the same for tuning an athlete. I want that stiffness and mobility just tuned to the fine edge. So when they're pulling, they're right at the end of what the hamstring is going to give. I want it right at the end of stiffness, and then use all the gear. What does gear do? It adds stiffness. It potentiates what you. So why throw away your natural elasticity through willy-nilly stretching? Anyway, but if you don't have enough mobility, well, that's a problem too, because you won't find a power lifter who can throw a football in the NFL 70 yards. So, right, a heavy dead probably isn't their exercise. So that whole tuning of the feet is huge if they're lifting, running, how they're using their feet to correct load. You name it.